And supper being ended, the devil having already put it into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, rose from supper and laid aside his garments, took a towel and girded himself. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel with which he was girded. Then he came to Simon Peter. And Peter said to him, Lord, are you washing my feet? Jesus answered and said to him, What I am doing you do not understand now, but you will know after this. And Peter said to him, You shall never wash my feet. Jesus answered him, If I do not wash you, you have no part with me. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Jesus said to him, He who is bathed needs only to wash his feet, but is completely clean. And you are clean, but not all of you. For he knew who would betray him. Therefore he said, You are not all clean. So when he had washed their feet, taken his garments, and sat down again, he said to them, Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you say, Well, for so I am. If then your Lord and teacher have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. Most assuredly I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is he who is sent greater than he who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them. When I read this passage and I think about foot washing, I think about the great love that Jesus had not only for his disciples, but for all of us in the whole world. I think about what kind of love it would take to get up as the leader and wash the feet of those that were in that room, especially knowing that one of those people, Judas Iscariot, was about to betray him. And yet Jesus washed his feet and loved him just the same. It was probably also hard to wash the feet of Peter. Peter, who first said, You will never wash my feet, and then said, Wash my head and my hands, sort of the feast or famine Peter. He was going to deny Christ 3 times in the very near future, and yet Jesus explained to Peter that he didn't understand yet what Jesus was doing for him, but that he would understand. And out of love, he washed Peter's feet. I think about the incredible amount of love that Jesus showed, and we see that he was going to go to the extreme love for us, to be beaten and to be nailed to a tree and to lay down his life so we could have eternal life. And this was just a foreshadowing of his great love for us. But I also think about the leadership, that we have all these books on leadership, and yet this chapter, these particular verses, are probably the best lesson on leadership that you will ever receive anywhere. When Jesus, who was the leader, got up from the table and took a towel and washed the feet of his disciples, servanthood is the key to leadership. And so many books are written about leadership, but not many books are written about servanthood. And Jesus here shows us the importance of servanthood in leadership. And he certainly was a servant. And if we want to be good leaders, we have to be good servants. You know, I grew up in a church that had foot washing services. I know a lot of people are kind of freaked out or weirded out by the thought of gathering with others to wash feet, knowing that in this society that when you traveled wearing sandals on dusty roads, your feet needed to be washed. But we see that that was the job of a slave, a menial task, and yet Jesus was not shying away from that. He washed the disciples' feet. And he gets into this discussion with Peter about if you are bathed, then you ought only to have to wash your feet. And he said that they were clean, except for Judas Iscariot. So that is a lesson probably for another time on sanctification. But we see here that there was no need to wash Peter's hands and Peter's head, only his feet. But Jesus led them in servanthood. And we see that the way of Christ is to be first, you have to be last. To be the greatest, you have to be the least. And so he tells later in this chapter that by this love, that you shall be known as my disciples. By having this love one for another, this new commandment that he gave to us, that we have love one for another. So I have been in many foot washing services, and they have been greatly moving to me. And when I think about the very crux, the very principle of it, it's a way to serve others and a way to help others, a way to show love to others. There's many ways in our society that we can do that. We no longer wear sandals on dusty roads to the extent that they did at this time in history. But there are ways that we can show love one to another. And finally, I think about the lordship. That my Lord, your Lord, wasn't above washing the disciples' feet, getting up and going around and washing feet. And when I think about that he said to them that you were right to call him teacher and Lord because he is. But he wanted to show us that we need to submit to his lordship and able to serve others and love others in this same way. So this Holy Week, this Maundy Thursday, it's called Maundy Thursday because of this foot washing, and Maundy comes from the Latin root to command. So the real command of this Maundy Thursday is to love, and to love in a way that Jesus loved. And by this shall all men know that you are my disciples, that you have love one for another. And so as Jesus was able to show his love for us by this foot washing. Thank you for those amens from the canines. As the Lord was able to show his love for us and to his disciples with this foot washing, I encourage you, not only during Holy Week, but every day of every week, to show love one to another. Whether you don't have to really get down and wash someone's feet, but you can serve them and show the love of Jesus living through you. I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has been uplifting and encouraging. God bless you.